translator sent out. Get our bot in here and get the Discord sent out. So, I think we're good. Let's go ahead and close Unreal because I accidentally clicked it when I was getting everything ready for the stream. So, hello everyone, this is Chris Ingerson, and it is, I was going to say December for some weird reason. It is February 7th, and this is the February 7th TextQuest Dev stream. So, today we are going to be doing some kind of miscellaneous cleanup. We are not going to be working on the loading screen animation for the opening. I'm still chipping away at that design. I haven't really found an ASCII art style or an ASCII art structure, I guess, that I'm happy with. So I'm kind of pushing that off. And also, in general, we're going to try to avoid doing ASCII art on air from now on, just because I feel like it's not exactly a responsive, or not a responsive, a quick process, and I feel like that can cause problems. So I'm just going to kind of not really focus on ASCII art on air. I'm just going to do that off air. Okay, so today we have a bunch of like miscellaneous things that we're going to be doing. Not nothing really major. Most of it's going to be pretty minor. So, for example, I would like to focus, or I would like to basically go through some things, some recent changes that we made, and do some quick checks to make sure that everything's actually working, kind of kick the tires a bit. First thing I want to do is I would like to double check that the screen resolution, or not screen resolution, that the output sections still work as expected, because I was actually giving a demo of TextQuest on Tuesday. I was giving a little presentation talking about it, and in 19 by 10 aspect ratio, which is what most MacBook Pros have, for example, um, my sections were offset enough that they caused unintended wrapping, which made everything look incorrect. That is not something that happened before. So it is something that we have to address. So I'm going to go ahead and try reading this. Okay, so it looks correct here, but what I am going to do is I'm going to come down here to UI. I'm going to come down to here. I am going to grab this. I'm going to make it 800 instead of 720. And that's interesting. Okay, what are my aspect ratios here? Yeah, that's about right. Okay, I'm going to, oh, right, that's why. I'm going to also make this 16 by 10. Interesting. So that does seem to be working. Okay, well, that's something I'm going to have to look into then. So that was that. That was pretty simple to check. We do have a correct match width and height. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. All that fun stuff. Okay. So that was a quick one off the board. One of the other things that I wanted to do was, real quick, we're going to check some keyword validation. So there are certain keywords that you can type into the parser and it will format them in specific ways. Or rather, I guess the way to put that is you don't type these in. These are keywords that are searched for by, say, object outputs. So one of these, I believe, and this is one that's been in there for a while, is if you type goodbye. Oh, not maybe bye. There we go. So you can see it says goodbye player name. This is a keyword that the parser should recognize, and what it'll do is it'll basically replace this keyword player name with the player's input name. This is something that is not working right now, so that's something I would like to double check, basically. So we're going to go ahead and pause this. I am going to, I guess we'll go ahead and say parser. Can I get around to that and say .ts? Nope. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and double click on this. I believe that there's a function inside a parser that basically just formats all of that. It looks for those particular keywords and then it will replace them as you would expect. I'm going to double check that that is functioning as expected. Obviously, it's not, but I would like to know. I think that's because I tried to basically offload that formatting from the front end as much as possible anyway, and that just can't really function. So uh, let's go ahead and say I think it's called like format output. So we're looking at this. Okay. So that's really all this does. And that's not good enough. So I'm actually, real quick, I'm going to do I'm going to type in, oh, don't do that. Dang it, I accidentally hit enter when I was trying to hit shift. Okay, so we're going to say player name. I believe this is defined. Let's see here. I should probably go ahead and say match case exactly. Find all. Here we are. So I'm only doing it apparently in the demo end screen and the non-standard game overview. Those are not particularly useful. So probably what we'll want to do is I'll want to define this as a constant for one. That way I can adjust it a little bit more easily in the long run. Also, by the way, this is going to be a pretty coding heavy day. So we'll be doing some minor adjustments to things in the scene, some minor design and art adjustments, but for the most part, this is going to be a bit of a code cleanup day, just so that everyone is aware. All right, so for this, oh boy, I am really not sure what the best approach is for this. Ideally, I would be able to avoid the overhead that of calling replace if we don't need it. So probably actually what we're going to do here first is one, I guess we'll go ahead and define this. So we'll say object name, highlight color. Let's go ahead and say that's fine. We're going to go ahead and come down to here and we're going to say public const string keyword underscore player name. Name is equal to player name. Okay, so we'll want to keep word of or keep that in a constant say because it's going to be used in multiple places. Let's go ahead and let that compile, and then I'm going to jump over to a test scene, and we're going to do some profiling just to kind of get a sense for how efficient this code is. Because I'm not actually sure if replace will do much of anything if the string. Well, my main concern is having overhead costs when we don't need it, and the secondary concern there is reducing that cost as much as possible. So probably what we're going to do is we're just going to come into like an empty scene basically that has some UI elements, and we'll just replace some strings there to kind of get a sense of what we want to or how we want to check that operation. So I'm going to kind of collapse a bunch of this because we don't really need it right now. We're going to go collapse this. Not really that worried about these things. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do a test. I'm going to make a new scene. We're just going to call this string replacement test, which is now going to be here, and we can drag this all the way back up to here. Let's go ahead and create a subfolder. String, not a string, string replacement. Go ahead and get that. And from here, we're just going to make some basic UI. So we'll make a canvas. Okay, let's go ahead and make some text. You know what? Actually, I guess I guess we don't want to do that. We want to do this in the most pure way possible because it's all strings. That's all we really care about. Well, no, you know what? We'll do it so that we have some visuals to at least look at. So we have canvas. We're going to go ahead and create basically just two UI areas. We're just going to make a basic image. We'll give it a background. Just that. We'll go ahead and have that be anchored over here. It's going to be anchored to 0.5. We'll do something like 50, 50, 50, and 50. We'll go ahead and rename this to original text. Okay, let's go ahead and create a UI object, text mesh pro text. We'll give that a second. Okay, we're going to go ahead and stretch that out. We'll have 10, 10, 10, 10. We'll make this 24, not that it really matters, but let's go ahead and just call this original label. Okay, we're going to go ahead and duplicate this. This is now going to be called modified text. Okay, we are going to be at 0.50, oops, sorry, not 0, 1. We'll call this the modified label. All right. And from there, we can go ahead and make a quick script. C# script. We're just going to say string replacement test. Okay. Now let's go ahead and put this right here. Oh, fine. Yeah, sure, whatever. You're still compiling. I should have known. All right. So we're going to need to say using TM Pro. That's pretty much it. We're going to go ahead and say public string original string is equal to whatever. We'll go ahead and make that a text area, like, I don't know, 5 and 5, something pretty spacey. We'll go ahead and say public string replacement target is equal to whatever. Public string replacement value is equal to whatever. And then we'll go ahead and say just private void start. And, oh, right, the other thing we need is public text mesh pro UGUI, original label, if I could type, public text mesh pro UGUI, modified label. Okay, so we're just going to say original label is equal to, sorry, not that, dot text is equal to original string. And then conversely, we're going to say modified label is equal, text is equal to original string dot replacement target with replacement value. Okay, so that's all we're really going to do. That's pretty straightforward. Actually, I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move this into, I guess I didn't need to do that. I'm just going to put this in update instead of start. And then I'm just going to say if input.get key down key code space. I'm going to do this instead of on start. I'm going to do it in update. And the reason I'm doing that is because if I do it in start is called in the first frame, which already has a ton of overhead associated with it, and I want to isolate this so that I can, actually see what's happening. This will also let me repeatedly test it out, so I don't have to worry about, stopping the scene and restarting it, basically. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. That's all we're really going to do. We're going to go ahead and let that compile. While that's happening, I'm going to grab this. We'll set it to have like the outline, so it's a little bit easier to read. Not that it's going to matter really. We'll let that compile, and what was the other thing that I needed to do? Oh yes, I need to show, well, I need to wait for it to compile now. I have to pull up the profiler. So the profiler I am going to have off to the side because it takes up a lot of space. So I'll drag it over when we're looking at stuff. So I think we want profiler. let's go ahead. I'm going to hit save. I have the hiccups. Alright, so we have our original label, maybe, if you feel like it. Original label, modified label. The original string is just going to be, how about, this is a test of the test system. Okay. And, well, we'll only have one system for now. Replacement target is going to be test, and replacement value is a super serious test. Okay. Pretty straightforward there. Again, all we're going to be doing is kind of just be looking at the garbage generated from that call and see what all happens. All right, so we're currently pinging about a little over a little under 250 frames per second. We're gonna hit space, which coincides roughly with this. You'll see that there's a dip here, but there's also a huge amount of garbage. Or actually, no, that's the UI on the CPU, I suppose. Correct? Yeah, that's the UI updating. That kind of makes sense. But we do have a spike in garbage, which goes from, please tell me I read that wrong. Okay. Went from 6 kilobytes to 89 kilobytes. And I thought for a second that this 17 megabytes is what 18 kilobytes became, because it jumps over here and I'm like, oh my, 17 megabytes of garbage. That's not okay. So yeah, that's totally a thing. So we are generating a fair amount of garbage, but it's hard to say exactly how much of that was the string versus how much of that was the UI being updated. That is something to consider, of course. Of course, if it's the previous frame, because UI takes one frame to really calculate anything, so it's hard to really know. I could probably put a debug break in there to handle this, so it'd be a little bit easier to compare values. But looking at things, let's see, we're looking at a garbage allocation of something like 89, which I'm sure is this. So that is the canvases mostly. Behavior update, string replacement, okay. And then we do have a certain amount of garbage being allocated. It is pretty small, it's 100 bytes. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and before I resume, I'm going to change this so that it doesn't have a valid test replacement. So we'll say testing. Also, just to be sure, this did replace it, right? Yes, it's just kind of hard to see it. So I'm probably going to cheat and make these guys be black, which isn't really cheating, it's just me doing. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and play this again. Okay. That time, I did not notice a spike. I think there was one, though. Interesting. Okay. It is okay. So it is happening. I think. But I'm 90% sure that it is not happening. Hold on. I'm going to go ahead and clear this, and we're going to start over. But I am going to do a couple of things. One, I'm going to make this just a regular one, and two, I'm going to make this black. But three, we're going to come over to here. I'm going to make this be testing. If I could type. I don't think, at least from the looks of it, it did not seem like it did actually cause any garbage if it didn't find the replacement targets. So that's good. But I also could have been looking in the wrong spot. So we're going to try this again. Okay. Alright, so there's our spike, our telltale spike in UI costs, which brings us to 59 kilobytes. And it doesn't look like we have any garbage being generated. So that's good. So garbage isn't going to be a problem. We are still getting thread time, but that's probably not too bad. Let's go ahead and move this back over. So now we have to do this in a more complicated way. So I'm going to go ahead and do public bool use basic is equal to false. And then we're going to do this. Public. Oof, no. Alright. So I'm going to basically duplicate this twice. So we'll have 2 and then 3. Okay. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm basically going to do the same thing. Except instead of space, I'll just make it like return, which is the enter key. And for that, actually, I'm going to go ahead and do this as well. Private void start. We're just going to move this into start because there's no reason to do an update, so I can actually get rid of that. So that overhead will now be gone. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say dot replace replacement target 2 with replacement value 2 dot replace replacement target 3 with replacement value 3. So this is the kind of like most basic way to do a replacement function. You just constantly call dot replace. And I'm not entirely sure if it will actually concatenate them all at once or if it will do each operation individually. Hopefully it would be the latter, but I'm sorry, hopefully it would be the former, not the latter. But we will have to see, of course. So we'll let that compile real quick, and then we'll make those edits. Basically, I'm just trying to see what the differences are between, say, replacing one object and replacing 3 strings or an arbitrary number of strings, basically, just to see if how that affects it. So let's go ahead and we're going to say test. Actually, we're going to keep it, so to start, they're going to be all the false values, the ones that don't quite match. Replacement value 2 is that. Replacement target system. Period with systems exclamation point. And this is actually going to be system question mark. Okay. So I'm going to run through this. I'm going to hit play, and when I hit the enter key, it should try to replace 3 things that aren't there because they're not actually part of it. I'm going to check that overhead again, make sure it's still 0. I'm assuming it will be, but again, I want to just be sure. Okay, so we're looking at this. Funny enough, we're looking at even less garbage generated than before. So it's not that. I'm guessing the less garbage is because we're no longer doing this on update. Okay, so yeah, if it's not contained in the string, it does not alter it. Cool. Now let's try this. We're going to do it with the first one that does actually change, and the second one and third ones will not actually be accurate. They won't be able to replace anything again. So let's try that again. See what we get. Okay, here's what we're looking at. We do get 112 bytes of garbage. That's fine. That's pretty much what we were expecting. So let's go ahead and fill this out. So if this is still 120 bytes of garbage, or 112 bytes of garbage, which is what it's showing me here, see that we have 112 bytes coming out of that, then that's perfectly satisfying. It basically means that it won't replace anything unless it has to. and it won't generate extra strings or extra garbage in doing so, and that's all great. That's all I really care about. And if I'm lucky, I won't have to worry about anything else. So let's go ahead and okay. 338 bytes. That's not bad. Um, I okay. That's really not terrible. I was gonna try to come up with some crazy way of doing this that involved like creating a like an output, or I'm sorry, a string builder, and then basically modifying that. But I think we'll be better off if I don't do that. Um, so I think we'll just go ahead and do manual replacement. That way, it's not too crazy. Really, it's not going to get out of hand that way. So cool. That was actually a pretty good use of time. So we're going to go ahead and come back down to here. We have replace highlight with. Let's go ahead and say dot replace interactive object utility dot player name with session dot name. Okay. Now let's go ahead and let that compile. We can actually jump into the castle real quick. And while that's all going on, I'm going to take a drink. All right. So let's go ahead and nope, it compiled right at that moment because of course. Give that a second. Hit play. All right. So now if we type by, okay. So player is the default name that it gives you if you just play directly in the scene because it has to assign you something. So yeah, goodbye player. It's white by default because I believe, no, that's fine. I think the name does not include the favorite color. Yeah. Although maybe it should. Eh, eh, eh. Do we have? Nah. Nah. Well, yeah, okay. Let's do that. Where's this actually even being used right now? It's only in a few places, specifically in those areas that we checked, basically. Shoot. That is problematic for the save file stuff. Okay. In that case, harumph. Harumph, harumph, harumph. Okay. Yeah, so that could totally whatever. I kind of want to make it a color, and maybe that would be because it would be better overall if I could access that just for fun. So I can say public static string colored. How about name colored? Name colored. Okay, and then we'll say get return get session string session utility dot session player name followed by player. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to come back to here. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. We're going to say name dash colored. This is going to be player name underscore colored. Go ahead and copy that, paste this in here. Okay, and before I do anything else, let's go ahead and say, so session, I'm assuming, okay, fine, hold on. Erg. Find all references again. Okay, so we have that, and I would say that we want to change, let's see, parser, so this is going to be name colored. Okay, ooh, that's not what I want to do. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and, so while I'm in there, might as well, just give these some comments. Name of the, well, hold on. Name of the player. Whatever, I was going to say with, like, associated with the save file, but that's kind of redundant. No color. Rich text, I guess. Name of the player, including color, well, favorite color, rich text. Okay. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. Is the player right-handed? Player's favorite color. All right, pretty straightforward there. We're gonna go ahead and jump back to, let's see. So if we let that go, where even are you anymore? Let's try this one more time. Find all references. There we go. So when we save session, this is going to be session.add session utility dot session player name colored, and then we're going to say name for now. So what we need to do here is we don't want it to just say name. We also want it to include the favorite color for the player. So we're just going to steal this. It's going to be this. So we're going to copy this. Let's go ahead and come back down here. We're going to say this. We don't need to say session.name. We can just say that. That should populate that pretty readily. Okay. So let's go ahead and we'll let this all compile. And we should be able to just jump in, test out that custom output, or that little homage again. And it should say goodbye, comma, player in red. Because red is the default color. Originally, I did make it white, but that matched the UI, so it made it difficult to tell when it was showing color versus not showing color. So I just made it red, so it's a much more easily identifiable color. All right, let's go ahead and clear this. We'll hit play. We should just be able to jump in, hit enter, and type bye. And then it should give us a little nice output. And then everything will be perfect. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and say bye. Goodbye, player. You didn't do it, UI. No, you didn't. You really didn't. Really. Did I not save? Name colored. Go to definition. Oh, right. Yeah, that was my mistake. It should be that. So it would basically just be like that, I suppose. All right. So let's go ahead and let that compile. That makes sense that it wouldn't have that be set yet. Okay. So, trying to think if there's anything else around this particular set of code that we can do right now. I think this will pretty much clear up most of the interaction problems that I've seen. There are some other, speaking of interactions, some other things that I need to do to clean up some of the ways interactions are parsed out. I was getting some weird effects at my demo on Tuesday that I was not expecting. And actually, one of the things that I got that I kind of want to check right now, but I'm sure is fine in the editor. Yep. The grass was not generating, which was very strange to me. And I have to assume that's because the substance was unloaded, basically. Anyway, let's go ahead and just say bye. There we go. Cool. So that is working now. Cool. I suppose actually before we do that, I should go ahead and quit out and then just restart a new game just to kind of. Oh, we got a null reference. That's interesting. Oh, that was okay. Hold on. Build settings. Right. I made the demo build, which means that these were unloaded. Okay, so that was something else. But I can still go ahead. Might as well just start from the splash fade. Alrighty then. So, trying to think of anything else that I really noticed from the demo that were kind of problems that I need to address. Most of the, I guess I can talk a little bit about the demo that I presented. I was invited to give a small presentation at the local Unreal developers meetup. I know it's kind of funny that my game's developed in Unity and I went to an Unreal meetup, but sure, why not Tree? And it was basically just me giving a talk broadly on like what my approach to game design has been and any lessons that I've learned along the way. So it wasn't really anything that was particularly technical, just because again that wouldn't have been very sensible for an Unreal group. But there were a couple of things that caught my eye while I was running through it. Mostly very small things, like the text output section that I was talking about. The fact that that was messed up. Which I'm pretty sure I found before I made that build, and then I made the build and it was still messed up apparently, which is very distressing to me. Anyway, so we're gonna say bye. Yay! There we go. So that works. Now that will properly show the player's name and highlight it whenever we want to. So let's go ahead. Say that. Okay. And so that basically takes care of our parser formatting issues that I was seeing. So I'm going to go ahead and close our string replacement test. We can actually delete that entire folder. I don't need it anymore. I just needed it for that brief test. Okay. There are a couple of other things that we can do. Something that I would like to look at real quick is I want to jump over here to the castle. This 2 audio listeners thing is killing me. It's murder. So one of the things that I would like to do is take a look at how I handle parsing. I'm going to just collapse a bunch of stuff. Assuming it will let me, because it really does not want to. Oh, it's because it's compiling. Okay. I guess that makes sense. I did delete something. So. All right, we're going to go ahead and close these. Okay. So one of the things that I would like to do is I would like to change how difficulty works. Currently, if I have an object that's shared between normal mode and Sierra mode, basically what I do is well, it's pretty straightforward. Basically, I just reparse it based off of a JSON file. But if I can avoid doing that at runtime, that would be preferable. just because if I have that that JSON operation going on one, my JSON parser is fast, but it's not the most efficient, and it is parsing a large amount of data. So what I would like to do is I would like to come up with a way that lets me basically say, instead of parsing all of that data from on start, I can, I don't know, maybe delete a component. There are a couple of different ways that I've handled this. The reason that I didn't particularly enjoy the delete component approach was because of well, object reference problems. So I couldn't really just delete something because that would require a lot of weird esoteric setups. But we don't exactly have an ideal solution. So the main reason that I would not like to, well, so the main reason that it tries to parse them at runtime currently is because there are certain objects that are like fixtures the of the level that are baked into the lights or are baked with lights. And I can't spawn and despawn those because they'll look wrong, basically, depending on, because they won't have their lighting information. So to get around that, I basically said, okay, well, if I can't delete them at runtime or spawn them in at runtime, maybe I should just reparse everything, and that kind of works. But again, that brings us a lot of overhead that I don't really see a point to having. So I would ideally like to change that to be something that is either. I mean, I could take the same approach that I did with like my bookshelf over here, where it's called a complex object, which has children underneath it, and then I can kind of interact with those based off of just various modules that I have set up on this. But that's not really a one-to-one solution. Although I guess it could work, but it really wouldn't. Now that I think about it, well, actually, you know what? Hold on. Because if I recall correctly, yeah, we can basically assign the modules for the complex objects to be the modules of the interactive objects that are below it. So in theory, I could do the same thing, but I don't know if that's really the best approach or not. Hmm. 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 Right. So. Hmm. Um. So this approach isn't particularly a bad idea, but it does require that I still delete an object at runtime. Hmm. I mean, I don't have anything really referencing it right now, but it is something that I need to address. This might be something that I move on from pretty quickly, just because we do have. Well, no, I think that this will. I think we can come up with something. So I think my best approach is going to be to have a complex object type setup where I have a list of interactive objects, and then I can simply return that interaction list. What is this? Wow, how terrible is that? Well, we're going to rewrite this class to start because it's horrendously inefficient. Find all references. Let's see. Yeah, there is zero reason for this to be anything other than an array. So I'm going to actually just make this an array. Is equal to new. This. Okay, that way we no longer have to call to array. We can just let that be the case. Okay. I don't really want to call that interactions. Oh, that's right, because that's an override, so I have to keep that. We're going to go ahead and go down to here, which is hilarious because now that just that. Find all references. Yep, that's pretty funny. Huh. Well, whatever. I'm also going to go ahead and just make this a for loop while I'm at it. For int I equals 0, I is less than interaction list. Oof, that is... Nah, that's fine. Okay, interaction list dot length I plus plus. Right. I guess I could actually just make that interaction now that I think about it, which just returns interaction list, which itself just returns interactive objects. So yeah, this is not useful. Let's go ahead and find all references here. We're just going to go back to this and we're just going to say interaction list. Oh, what are you talking about? Why can I not grab the interactions list? Oh. Oh, because it's an iComplex interaction. Okay. Well, then I'll just loop through interaction objects. Interaction objects. Interaction objects. Okay. Oh, it's interactive objects. My bad. And we're just gonna say interactive objects of I dot modules is equal to this dot modules. Okay, pretty straightforward. Go ahead and delete this. Okay, so that was a little bit of optimization, I suppose, which is always nice. We no longer have it generating garbage. So that's cool. Let's go ahead and save that. List main only. That's fine. I really hope that I... of course. Oh, good, I did. Okay. So that should be a little bit more efficient, and I think we're basically going to adopt the same approach. So I'm going to go ahead and just let that go. So the door is probably one of our more convoluted setups for this. I wonder... that might not work. Let's go ahead and look at the bookshelf. So I have a very top level object, and then I have just children that are empty. So I can just do that basically, which probably actually means that I can just kind of derive from complex objects now that I think about it. And all it would do is it would just return. Well, yeah, okay, fine. So we'll go ahead and make this protected, just because why not? So let's go ahead and let that compile. So we have complex interactions. We don't have anything for. I'm going to go ahead and create. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to create a folder under complex interactions called difficulty object, I guess. Actually, what is my script name currently called? It might actually be called difficulty object. Okay. Difficulty object. Yep, that's what it's called. Okay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and just move this up into. Jeez, I should probably make this just be out here. Okay, but I am gonna move this up into here. Okay. Let's go ahead and open that up. And currently, it is done in a few places. I am only going to focus on the one. Cool. Inconsistent file names. That's always fun. Let's go ahead and save that. I don't know if I want to change this all at once right now. Probably what I should do is I should call this like difficulty interaction instead. But I'd like it to keep the same syntax as everything else because it's, yeah. Harumph, harumph, harumph. Hmm. I guess we would just call it difficulty interaction. But now I'm scared to do anything because I want this to compile first. Because I just know that as soon as I right click, it's going to do that fun thing where it doesn't stop compiling. Or no, where it does stop compiling right after I click. Alright. Give that a second. Or the prerequisite 5 minutes, you know, I forget by now. Oof, I really got to optimize load times. It's hard though because there's a lot of code in this game. Let's go ahead and right click, create C#. I'm going to call this just difficulty interactive object. Well, it's not ideal, but sure. Okay. Mostly I'm doing this so that I can preserve the original difficulty object for now, so I can reference it and basically make changes and make sure everything's assigned correctly. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that this is a TextQuest script. It is going to derive from complex object. And if we go over here to difficulty object, basically what we're going to do is we're going to have a public interactive object, normal object, public interactive object, Sierra object. Okay, pretty sure that's all I was doing for that. Yeah, so this time we're not going to really have the luxury of doing something like, oh geez, Okay, so funny enough, I can't really do this. Let me peek definition here. Complex object is not a good thing for this, actually, now that I think about it. But I could probably have this still be an actor, which is going to require me using sleepyowl.common. And then all we're going to do is we're going to say private void start, and in start we're just going to say if session dot difficulty is equal to Sierra, this, and otherwise we're going to say this. Hello, Garrett. Welcome back. How you doing tonight? I am tired. I could use a cup of coffee, actually. It's been raining all day here, and when it rains, I get tired. My energy levels are just completely sapped. And, oof. Gotta stretch. Gotta stretch. Keep up that energy. Okay. So the old way of doing this basically is I would just parse it out. Why I was doing it this way? Jeez, because this was probably just hacked together code to get it to work. So all we're going to do here is we're just going to go ahead and say, actually, you know what? Before I forget anything, is this okay? Good, it is a mono behavior. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and just say if we are in Sierra mode, then we're going to say Sierra object dot modules. Oops, modules is equal to this dot modules. Okay. We're going to go ahead and copy that, move it down to here. Otherwise, we're just going to go ahead and say normal object dot modules is equal to that. And so actually, real quick, I don't think I do anything in on enable for this. I could be wrong. activate. I do have an awake, but that's fine. Okay. So probably what I'll do is I'll just disable this object then. So I'm going to go ahead and say normal object dot game object dot set active false. Go ahead and copy this. And we're going to go ahead and say Sierra object dot game object dot set active blah blah blah. Okay, pretty straightforward there. Let's go ahead and let that compile, and we'll give that a test. It's a bummer working on fonts today. Oh, fancy. You like creating your own fonts from scratch, or are you hunting some good ones down on like crap? What is it? I want to say Font Forge, but I don't think that's correct. Because there is a fair amount of open source fonts, and not fair use fonts. What's the term? Public domain fonts, I guess. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and once that's compiled, assuming that it will ever compile properly. All right. We're gonna go ahead and grab this, close this, and I'm going to add difficulty interactive object. Okay. And yeah, that is kind of a problem. I don't really need the IDs, so we can just kind of let that go. So we're going to change this a little bit. We're going to come down here. We're going to say normal. Let's duplicate that and call this Sierra. Okay. And then we're just going to drag this door script over to normal mode, which may or may not work, because that did not actually do anything. Let's try that again. Normal mode. There we go. That should have brought this up. I'm going to disable this difficulty object for now. We're going to go ahead and drag this in. I'm going to add a door component to our normal door. Okay. Actually, you know what? I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to do this and duplicate this again. I should have done that from the start. Sierra. We're going to grab this. I'm going to drag in Sierra mode. We are going to hit update. Okay, so all of that stuff should be good. I do know that this needs to change to be that. And this needs to change. That's pretty good there. All right. So I think we'll be good there. And here's the other thing that I need to do, aside from not have you freak out, because you always do that. Oh, right. That's the fun part, isn't it? Yeah, okay. So we're going to go ahead and I believe I want to grab... So it's not enough for me to assign these modules. I believe I also need to assign the parent of those modules. So we're going to go ahead and say for int I equals 0, I is less than modules dot count I plus plus, and I am 95% sure that we are not just getting components all the time. And I believe we're going to say modules of I dot. I thought I could do like a set. Maybe I could do initialize. Nope. Is that seriously all automated? I have no way of overriding that. Go to definition. Huh. Ah, there it is. Activate. So I'll just go ahead and say back here. See, I thought I had some way built in. So modules of I dot activate false, and then we'll say Sierra object. Okay, we're going to come back here. Pretty much the same thing. We'll go ahead and do that. I'm also going to move this up to here. Get rid of this extra line. And we're going to set this to be our normal object. Okay. MG used Futura, but the license is crazy expensive, so we're going with Futura-like font and working with the author to customize it. Nice. Yeah, fonts are one of those weird areas of production that no one ever really looks into. So like legitimately using fonts is a surprisingly expensive process, but there's tons of open source fonts and open license fonts that are a little bit easier to work with. But that's pretty cool though that you have a type, well, not a typographer. Is it a typographer? I actually don't recall what the term is for the technical term for a person who creates. Typographer. Pretty sure that's it. Yeah, I believe that's typography. Anyway, that's pretty cool though. So you're in the process of swapping out all of the UI to use that then? Okay. So this all seems to work. It's all looking pretty good. We're going to come up here. We're going to turn this off. We're going to make this our Sierra object. Okay. So I am going to let this, I'm going to play this, and I should be able to, oh, you know what, this isn't a valid, well, this might be a valid test. So I should be able to go over here and open it like normal. And if that works, then I will go back to the main menu, and then I'll come back in Sierra mode, and if and then I should be able to not be able to open the door, I guess. Over here. Oh. Oop, there's the null reference. Okay. How interesting. Oh. Oh. Ooh. Right. So probably what we're going to do here is we're going to say private. Oof, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and say public interactive object target. We're going to go ahead and come down here. We'll say get return session dot difficulty is equal to Sierra. Oops. Not Sierra question mark. So we'll return Sierra object. Otherwise, we'll return normal object. Okay. Font maker, lettersmith, setting up TMPDs, the letters we need, get the TMP settings correct so the font renders well, etc. Yeah, it can be a little tedious to get it to be exactly the way you want, especially if you're doing really fine-tuned adjustments. But one of the benefits of working with your own, I keep wanting to say fontist, but that is not correct. In fact, I'm 90% sure that a fontist is not a type, someone who's related to creating fonts, and is instead a person from Tales of the Abyss that casts magic. I'm pretty sure that they were, no, I guess they were called, no, I'm pretty sure they were called fontists. Because in that game, all of the magic arts were called like phonon fields. But anyway, one of the benefits of working with the creator of the font is you can have them pack in special symbols, and then you could use those symbols for like in lieu of normal characters that you might need, well that you wouldn't need normally. So that would give you a little bit more options for expressive UI if you needed that. Anywho, so we're gonna go ahead and come down here. We have that be public. That's all good. So this particular null reference, which I have already wiped out, which is not great. We're going to go ahead and say activate peak definition. If not owner, or if no owner or reset. Oh, I have to say force reset. Okay. So this is going to be true, I guess, and true. So we'll come back down here. Let that compile. Because one of the other things that I'm pretty sure I have to do is, I think, I have a reference to the door. Maybe. Maybe not. It might not be So that's probably actually fine then. Never mind. All right, let's try this again. Okay, so this time we should be able to actually interact with everything. At least I'm hoping so. And then once we confirm that is working, I can jump back out to the main menu, come back in Sierra mode, and see how things shake out. Oh, by the way, Garrett, are you going to GDC this year? Because it's always in LA, or not LA, it's always in San Francisco. And I know you're in California. But I remember that you're not like right next to it, if I remember correctly. It was a bit of a hike for you. Yay! Nice. Not doing GDC. All right, so that seems to work. So I'm going to go ahead and say, we're going to go ahead and quit out. We're going to start a new game. We'll make it in Sierra mode, and then we'll see if it gives me the Sierra mode output for that door. In LA? Yeah, that's what I thought you were in. Are you in LA proper, or are you in one of the like surrounding mega cities that got swallowed into it? Because like all large cities, LA spread out. We're going to do a new game. We're going to do Chris. We have a null reference, which is not okay. Where is that coming from? Interactive lock. Oh. Right. Shoot. That complicates things immensely. Right, so let's go ahead and open this up. I'm pretty sure that this locked object is, yep, an interface. And if that's the case, this difficulty interactive object is probably going to need to be a door. Oof. Well, that's not great. Ugh. Okay. Yeah. Um. Mm, Well, that's not great. Easiest thing that I can think of to do this is, not gonna be fun. This is done in Start. Cool. So I could create a separate script that will basically manually assign the lock based off of this difficulty interactive object. Gross. I might, jeez, I might just cheat. So we're gonna go ahead and come down here, and we're gonna say difficulty door. Difficulty door. Okay. And this is just going to set what that lock's object is, basically. Let's go ahead and open that up. I'm in the suburbs of North LA, San Fernando Valley. Only about 1.3 million people. Oh, only 1.3 million people. You're talking to a guy who lives in a city whose metropolitan area, like the entirety of all of the surrounding towns and the main city hub, are like barely over 1 million people, I think. So we're going to go ahead and say text quest. This is going to derive from difficulty interactive object. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say, well, there are a couple of things. One, I am going to go ahead and say serialize field, tooltip, blah, blah, blah. And this is going to be the interactive object to enable in normal mode. Let's go ahead and grab void. Okay, pretty straightforward. And then we're going to go down here to difficulty door. We are going to go ahead and say serialize field, tooltip. We'll say private interactive lock, lock, which I can't call it that because it's a key. It's a reserved word, of course. That's fine. That's fine. I'll just call it door lock. Door lock. And this is going to be optional lock for this, for the doors to use. Okay, and we're just going to come down here and say private void in awake. We'll say, I guess actually that should be override awake. And we're just going to say, if door lock does not equal null, then we'll simply say door lock dot, what did I call it here? Locked object or something like that. Yeah. Locked object is equal to target as I lockable. Are you really going to not let me do that? I guess you don't like me doing that, so it means we're going to do this. Okay. Okay, fine, whatever. Sure, why not? So let's go ahead and grab this, go to definition. We're going to go ahead and say set locked object is equal to value. Wow, you really will not let me do that? Fine. I guess the easiest thing to do then would just be to say it's that, I guess. That kind of makes sense. Okay. So that should handle setting that. Let's go ahead and come back here. Let that compile. I hate working with interfaces. Well, not entirely. They are very useful, but they are a pain to do anything with if you're inside of Unity because it does not like interface serialization, so it becomes quite difficult to work with. It's not ideal in any way, shape, or form, really. Let's go ahead and let this go. We should be able to get in there once it actually finishes compiling. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up difficulty door. We don't care about ID or type. I'm going to go ahead and say normal node, or normal door is going to go to here, Sierra door is going to go to here, and the door lock is going to go to here. And then I can remove this. Okay. We're going to go ahead and say save, and let's, real quick, we'll jump in, and it should work, I think, by default, without any real effort on our part. At least that's the hope anyway. And we'll be able to, I guess, validate that just by looking at whether the field for the lock is filled in or not. So we'll see that in a second. That is one of the other problems, I guess, is that if it's a complex object like that and it has locks or other objects that need to reference them, it gets more tedious for me to actually handle assigning all of those references. So no clip. Let's fly through this world. Okay, so open. Okay. That's cool. Looking good. Close. So that seems to work. Let's go ahead and quit out. Let's hit start. New game. Chris, yes. Nope, not normal. Sierra mode. Yes. Right, green, yes, and yes. Okay, let's go ahead and go in there. We already have a null reference, I think. Listening animation module. Listening animation module. Okay. Cool. So So let's take a look at these code bases. So this is in start. Target. I suppose that's fair. Wait, what? What is happening here? Targets. What are you? Targets. Add interactive objects. Targets private. Where does that even get set? Add. Ah, here we are. Ah, jeez. Of course not. Okay. Why are you giving me a problem here? So this is clearly null, but that is not great. Okay. Yeah, okay, so we got to reevaluate these codes. Let's go ahead and open this back up. We're going to open up our listening animation module. We can't do this in start anymore. That does not work. Instead, we should probably put this in activate right there, which is conveniently only calling that. So, set bool, which, where even is this? Oh, it's in the animation module, which is down here, which animator I believe just grabs the animator. Yes, that's all fine. Okay, so this I think is the only thing that needs. So we're gonna move this over to here. I'm gonna paste that. Move this. I think we can. Yeah. Targets don't add. That's all fine. So I think I'm gonna come down to here. We're gonna go to here on that. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and say. This. Come down to here, and we're gonna say. If targets dot contains owner, so if not that, oops, there we go. If not targets dot contains owner, fair enough. Oh shoot! Oh, that causes all kinds of problems. Now doesn't it? It does, which means I'm just going to do this. We're just going to say if reset. And I'm going to cheat. Okay. Yeah. Boo. Okay. Do we need anything else here? No. So I'm gonna, I guess, make a protected void initialize override targets. We're gonna do that. And basically, we're just going to do a for loop here. So we're going to say for int I equals 0. I is less than listeners dot. Is this a length? Nope, this is a count. I plus plus. If listeners of I dot override target does not equal null. We're just going to go ahead and say targets dot add listeners of I dot override target. Okay, that's what we were basically doing here. So we're just going to call. Actually, we're not going to do it there. sucks. Okay. So let's just do that. I guess that means that I can come down here and just say, we're gonna go up here actually, I guess. We're gonna say initialize override targets, and that is also not acceptable. Ah, crap. Okay. So the problem is I need to basically do this targets dot clear. I guess, fine. I guess we can do this. Else that. And there are all kinds of problems here. Wow. Yeah, all kinds of problems. So we're going to want to go ahead and say for int I equals 0, I is less than targets dot count I plus plus. We're just going to go ahead and say targets of I dot verb success minus equals on data updated. Just get rid of all those event listeners. Okay, and we're basically going to have to do the same thing at the end here when we do this. But instead of minus equals, we're going to say plus equals. And that's pretty much all we needed to do. We'll go ahead and do this, I guess. Oh, man. There's no getting away from that, is there? Yep. Yep. Okay. So I guess we're going to do this, actually. Boop. This. Boop. Because there's no situation in which I don't want to initialize that, so I'm just going to do that. We're going to get rid of this, and we'll go ahead and do that. I think that will take care of it for us. Or at least it should. Let's go ahead, and I think that will pretty much do that. That'll solve that problem. Okay, so this is not giving us our desired results, which is a little odd. I was actually kind of expecting it to, but that... Let's look at the interactive lock again. We're not doing anything in awake, are we? Check verb, do verb, lock, unlock. Let's see. Override awake, which base.awake. Okay, sure, whatever. It just calls activate modules, which itself doesn't really have any modules, so that's all fine, I think. Okay, I think we're good here, I guess. So let's just kind of let that go. So let's try this again. I'm pretty sure that it will set everything correctly this time. So let's try it out. Yeah, okay. Oof. Oh man, I really needed a nap after work today, and I did not get one. I'm dying. Go ahead and fly over here. Okay, cool. So we're in a worse spot than we were before. We got a null reference again. All right. Now where is that coming from? Really? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not okay. So I have to do this, actually. We have to say if owner is interactive object, we're going to do that because it's important that that actually be safe. So that's one thing. And our interactive lock is still borked. Yeah. Okay. So this is still giving us problems. Lock, unlock. Right. Man, you really suck. All right. So this is how is start getting called before awake here? Like this isn't null. Debug.log test 1. Okay, we're gonna come back down to here. Just put this in as test 2. So those should execute in sequence. So test 1, then test 2. Where did this come from? This came from interaction. Interactive object hit actor as. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Wait, what? The collision module didn't get its parent or its value set? Peak definition, owner. We forced reset the owner. Okay. That's curious. Very curious indeed. Let's go ahead and... Let's try that again. Oh, this is going to go poorly. I didn't expect it to take so long. So, That is curious. Okay. Let's go ahead and let that compile. And while it's happening, I'm going to take a drink. Alright. So we're just going to say this no clip. I'm pretty sure that we already have our no reference problem if we are going to see it. It's there still, which is very interesting because test 2 did fire after test 1, but it seems as if it did not. Because we have our locked object, which actually, let's take a look at this. Locked object is normal door. Okay, if we go back to the lock, it's a normal door. But it's not able to get it, huh? Get component type of iLockable, which the door is, I believe, lockable. So that's curious. Okay. Huh. Okay. Yeah. So maybe it's because of this? I guess that would kind of make sense. So instead of as game object, maybe it should be as... I guess that kind of makes sense. Let's go ahead and stop playing. I have a theory. So instead of as game object, this should be as interactive object. Let's see if that fixes the problem. Because what could have been happening is the locked object was being set as a component reference, which is not castable to game object. So by making it interactive object instead, it should retain its reference, I'm hoping. This should also not really matter. Oof. Maybe. We'll. I might have to change how that functions a little bit in the inspector because I probably should make these objects instead. I should probably make them components? Question mark. Nope, nope. Don't want to do that because I could actually see interface fields for scriptable assets and they're scriptable objects, and that causes all kinds of uncomfortable rabbit holes. All right, I'm going to turn off maximize on play so that we can see if that pops up right away again. If it doesn't, then my theory was correct. If it does, then my theory was not. I'm really hoping my theory was correct because that would be really cool. Yeah, I was correct. So that means that we should be able to go over there just fine. Yep. Okay. Let's quit out. Let's do a new game. Yes, yes, not normal, Sierra. Yes, right, green, yes, and yes. All right. Any errors? There are no errors so far. That's good. I have no idea what that was. Okay, open. Yes! So that works. And that reduces the overhead of starting a level because now we are no longer dynamically parsing a giant mass of JSON on the fly. Instead, we are only looking at it basically at edit time, and we don't have to worry about it for runtime parsing. So that's nice. That's a really nice get. Okay, so cool. Let's go ahead and stop playing. So that handles this locked object. Probably I'm going to redo this interface field so that it can reference. Shoot. All right. Now I'll have to think about how I want to do that. But it does seem like that's working. So now we have the ability to actually set objects to use different behaviors and different values if they are normal and if it's normal or Sierra mode. We did have that functionality sort of before, but it was not the most efficient, and it was definitely a more roundabout way of doing it. So we will no longer need this class, and instead I can more easily use or more easily transition between difficulty modes now without having to do like a bunch of go through and do a bunch of hoops. Although that's all fine. Yeah, actually, you know what? Hold on. I could probably do that. So we go back over here to difficulty. Instead of doing this, I guess what I would do is I would do this. Let's clean up our code a little bit. I think I could just say Sierra object dot modules. Activate modules. There we are. Say true and Sierra object, I guess. Sure. I guess that kind of makes sense. So that reduces this chunk of code. So we can move this, put it up here, and then I can instead just say normal object dot activate modules, true and normal. Oops, normal object. It's all nice. So that just reduces those lines of code a little bit. So, all right. So let me take a look at what else we have on my task list. We might call it a day there. I know it's a little early. I have a couple of things that I need to chase down, and they're not particularly going to be interesting to show on air. So we have made good progress today, though. We have the process by which our difficulty object values are set is now done at edit time, so that reduces the overhead every time you enter a level for objects that have multiple values based on the difficulty settings. There are a few other things. Well, we're just going to continue on my list of things that we did. So we have kind of maybe confirmed that our output sections are rendering properly. Maybe it was just a weird problem with my build that I was showing off on Tuesday. We optimized our complex object, which is always nice. I always love optimizing old code. And we fixed some keyword issues with the parser, so that's also very nice. So yeah, pretty productive day. All right, so announcements. I should be streaming this weekend. Should be actually on schedule for that. So that'll be Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Next Tuesday, I believe I am also good to stream. And next Thursday, I should be streaming as well. Next weekend, I should also be streaming on Saturday, but we'll see how that schedule shakes out. So yeah, so basically things are on track for the next week or so as far as streaming goes. And I think that's about it for now. So, all right. As always, I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all next time.